your boy Luke here for our round 3 prize picks targets for the Honda Classic. Round 2 was a little bit of a doozy for us on the prize picks side. Didn't have many of our props even hit. So our main card out of 5 did not hit by any means. We did profit on day 1, which was nice to be able to make up for some of the losses today. But we are looking to fire back and come back even stronger for Saturday. Now that we have a smaller field, even more data to go off of for this week, I expect us to have even more results. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop right on into it. First off, with a review of the round 2 slate and of course what we expect going into round 3. All right, we're going to start with a little bit of a weather review before we hop into the stats. And for tomorrow, it's going to be extremely windy. As early as 10 a.m., we have 8 to 15 miles an hour of wind. And throughout the rest of the day, it's going to be very blustery. We have 9 to 18 miles an hour around midday. And the whole way up until 4, even 6 p.m., we're going to have upwards of 20 mile an hour gusts. That means that scoring average that we saw today, which was close to 1.5 strokes over par, in fact, in the afternoon was even worse than in the morning, where it was closer to 1.6 strokes over par, is very likely what we're going to see for Saturday, if not worse conditions. First off, the pin locations. Every single Sunday on the PGA Tour are going to be a lot more difficult than what we see at most of these other courses. And of course, it tends to get firmer and faster. That is definitely the case here with PGA National. With so much sunlight, I mean, you can see it on my face, just how bright it is out there, how much these greens are able to bake out. You're going to see that effect as this tournament goes on. It happens every single year. The scoring average will get progressively worse throughout the rounds. And the fact that we had over a 1-stroke scoring average for Thursday just is a sign of things to come. Last year, the scoring average was 1.1 over par. It was 1.3 over par there in round 1. So we can expect that to continue. And here in round 3, I'm expecting it to be close to 1.75 strokes over par. So just continuing that trend. On Sunday, it'll probably be close to 2 strokes over par, with the greens getting even more firm, even more fast throughout the week. But in general, these greens aren't hard to hit. They're just hard to putt. I mean, when you get onto these greens, unless you're within 4 or 5 feet, nothing's going to be a given. That means those 7 to 8 footers for par are going to be hard to come by, and that's why you see so many large numbers out there. Of course, you have a lot of the hazards in play, a lot of the water, you have some long holes, a lot of wind in play. So it's not quite just that, but in general, really you got to be keeping yourself in play to have any type of a chance here around PGA National, and that shows on the scorecards. Let's go over to some of the pin locations I think that are important to note here. First off, at hole number 15 for the bear trap, you'll see it's on the back right here. We will be playing across the lake on hole 15, so it's really kind of front right. They're not going to be hitting it from the bottom to front like it's oriented on the screen right here. But either way, it is close to the water that's over here on the back right, and of course the water up front. So in general, this is an extremely difficult pin location, so I do expect to see quite a few water balls on hole 15. Hole 16, on the other hand, a little bit easier. It's the back right. Players will be coming in from the angle from the bottom right part of this box, so kind of like from bottom right to top left. And as a result, it takes a lot of the water out of play. I mean, of course, with that back pin location, and also the front bunker out of play. So this is probably the easiest pin location that they can have at 16, but it's still far from a birdie hole. But hole 17 is also a little bit of a brute. It's in the back, but you do have that bunker guarding this pin location. They'll also be coming in from bottom right to top left with their shots, which means that any shot that comes in with a little bit too much steam is going to be absolutely dead in that bunker. And the reason why it's absolutely dead is this green slopes from back to front. So any shot that you're hitting out of that bunker, you're going to have no chance of stopping it within 10 to 15 feet. 20 to 25 feet is probably what you're looking at there. So 15 and 17, very difficult. So the bear trap could be something to take a look at there. In terms of the par 5s, hole number 3 is difficult. You have the pin location in the back left, just 4 paces off from the left edge. It's a little bit of a peninsula back there and also a ton of undulation. Hole 18, a little bit easier though. You can see it's kind of towards the middle of the green. It's a whole 6 paces there off of the left, but there is a huge slope that goes from right about here the whole way back to this back peninsula, and it's just over that slope. That means that anything with a little bit too much steam is going to go the whole way off the green here to the back left because of all that slope. And of course, anything short, you're going to have a nearly impossible putt down the slope to this pin. So it looks easy on paper, but it's not really as easy in reality. Now let's hop over to the prize picks board and talk about some of my favorite plays on the slate. First off, going to be the greens in regulation for quite a few of the top players on the board. So let's go ahead and start off with Shane Lowry down here at 11.5 greens in regulation. He's somebody who, when he's on his game, when he's playing his best golf, he's a top 20 approach player in the world. He's extremely accurate. He's a little bit more conservative than most, but as a result has some of the best greens and regulation numbers in all of the world. Whether he's playing on the European Tour or over here on the PGA Tour, is going to be a standout in that category. So the fact that he's priced at the bottom of the board among people like a Ryan Palmer, Lee Westwood, Nick Watney, Billy Horschel, who are far from bad iron players, but they're nowhere near the same level as a Shane Lowry. So I wish it was down there at 11, like what we had with a Nick Taylor or a Ricky Fowler, but of course there's a reason why Shane Lowry is priced above them. He's head and shoulders a better iron player than both of those guys. So I like the form going into the week. I like what we saw through rounds 1 and round 2, where he has hit plenty of greens in regulation. And if he can continue that, hit it at just a 66% rate going for tomorrow, will end up hitting the over for us. Next up, we have Russell Knox, who's the best iron player in this field. If you take a look at the last 24 measured rounds, or even the last 50 measured rounds for this field, he's number 1 in that category, even better than a Daniel Berger, who's been on an absolute tear of himself. But that just shows you how good that Russell Knox has been in that category. Today, ended up hitting well over on the greens in regulation. On Thursday, ended up pushing for us. So it's a prop that I'm looking to go back to. Anytime somebody is priced among a lot of other people in the field, and he's by far, head and shoulders better than everyone else in the approach play, will be somebody that I'm targeting. And lastly, we have Brooks Koepka at 12 greens of regulation. He hasn't looked quite as sharp to this point in the golf tournament. I guess on Thursday, through 14 holes, he looked pretty damn sharp, but those last 4 holes ended up costing him there with 2 shots. And then here on Friday, he looked very disinterested. So there's definitely a little bit of risk that he doesn't go out there and give it his all. But if he goes out there and plays to his normal baseline, this is a clearly mispriced line. I mean, it should be closer to 12.5, 13 at the very least. He's one of the world's best ball strikers. So for him to be priced among guys like a Danny Willett, even guys like a Gary Woodland, Garrick Higo, Mark Hubbard especially, are borderline disrespectful to be at this same type of line. So per the numbers, this is one of the better plays on all of the slate. So even though the numbers haven't looked that good through rounds 1 and round 2, I'm more than willing to give him a pass when it's the type of pedigree of player that we have here with the Brooks Koepka. And now our last 2 props, you can see we're taking all overs, but we're still getting that 12.5x value. So it seems like they've changed the payout system once again, perhaps to accurately represent the true odds of these payouts a little bit more. So even though we're taking all overs, we are getting that boost because this is a completely different category. When you're taking the over for somebody on shots, you're fading them. Whereas if you're taking the under, you'd be hoping that they do well, right? So rather than this being treated as all overs, these are almost like quote unquote unders to the system, right? Because we're fading them. We're not hoping that they go out and have a good round. So 3 supporting stances and 2 fading stances is now giving you a 12.5x value. Now, if I were to change these to unders, where in the past this would give us a 12x value, it's down to 8x. So that's the change that they've made, which is for the better. It makes more sense logically. I'm sure that's what they were hoping to do initially anyways, but just wanted to go ahead and show you guys that. Let's talk about this prop here, though. I have Ricky Fowler over 4.5 shots at hole number 3, and a lot of this comes down to pin location. Like I said, that back left portion of this green is extremely difficult, and not only does it have a ton of undulation, it also adds 20 yards to the hole. It's already a long hole, hard to get there in 2. In round number 2, we had a ton of water balls over here. You don't see the lake here in this graphic, but over here is a massive water hazard. A lot of people were shanking shots over there into the left. So, of course, if Ricky Fowler ends up hitting it over there, is going to end up hitting the over. But either way, I don't see him getting there in 2. And getting up and down at that really tricky part of the green is far from a guarantee. So I do like the over there. I see it happening more often than not. It's also something that's relatively easy to sweat in person because I'll be there. And lastly, we have hole 18 over for Alex Noren. And he's clearly the odd man out if you take a look at the bunch of guys that they put up here for 18. 18 played much more difficult today than it did on Thursday, and we expected that. I told you guys before that even though it was a simple pin location, we were dealing with a ton of wind. And here for round 3, you can see that, again, like I said before, it's a trickier pin location than it looks like. So even though it did play a little bit easier on Thursday, I mean, a lot of people did make birdie there. I don't think a whole lot of people are going to So even though you have all these guys like a Brooks, Horschel, Berger, and all of them, I wouldn't be taking the under on it. I'd just be avoiding it altogether. I think it's more of a coin flip than anything. But for somebody like an Alex Noren that is not long off the tee, he's also relatively inaccurate off of the tee, him reaching a 3 isn't even guaranteed, and 2 sure as shit not. He's not going to get there with 2 shots. So for him to make that birdie, he's going to have to get up and down. And because the greens here are so difficult, much like a Ricky Fowler on number 3, that is far from a guarantee that he gets that done. So that's what we're going to be going with in that category. In terms of other players here, probably nobody I'm considering. For hole 3, though, I'd consider a lot of these guys, right? Nick Taylor, I'd consider taking the over on. Same thing with a Ryan Palmer and even a Garrick Higgo, especially Nick Watney. Higgo's probably the one guy I had the least conviction in saying that, but a lot of that comes down to driving accuracy, whereas Nick Watney, not very long. Same thing with a Nick Taylor. And Ryan Palmer, much like a Garrick Higgo, also very inaccurate off the tee. A few other props I had my eyes on over here with greens regulation. Louis Oosthuizen at 12 makes a whole lot of sense. I know we had that rough day Thursday, but today was absolutely fantastic for Louis. I'd also consider taking Billy Horschel over, even a Lee Westwood over down there at 11.5. All of those excellent iron players could hit a ton of greens regulation tomorrow. For birdies or better, it's not my favorite prop just because it comes down to the putter a lot of times. You can hit 14, 15 greens of regulation and only make 2 or 3 birdies. We've seen that from time to time, particularly on these really tricky greens. So probably not a category that I'm looking at there. And for strokes, not really my cup of tea here. Of course, with strokes, you get a little bit limited in terms of your payout structure if you go and add strokes to cards with things that don't have strokes in it. So going to be a fade there for me in that category. That's all I've got for the round 3 prize picks targets. Before we go on and get out of here, go ahead and let me know down in the comments what your favorite prop on the board is. As always, going to have you guys covered for Sunday prize picks, so look forward to that tomorrow night. And next week, we have the Arnold Palmer Invitational, and then, of course, the Players' Championship the week after that, which I will be at the Arnold Palmer on the weekend and at the Players' Championship for all 4 days. In fact, I actually plan on being at the Players early as well to give you guys a little bit of a report from the course, so look forward to that. We did just hit 900 subscribers here, so really stoked about that. That really hypes me up. So if you guys haven't already liked the video, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel as well, make sure you do that. We're well on the road to 1,000. I had no idea we were going to be hitting this as soon as we are here, but not going to stop now, right? Let's get there as soon as we can. So if you're not already a subscriber, make sure you guys do so you don't miss any of the content to come, whether it's for DFS, Prize Picks, Showdown. We have NBA content coming, especially now that NFL has ended, UFC content to come. Got you guys covered from all bases. Good luck tomorrow with all of your Saturday prop hunting, and let's get this cash, guys.